is the medication, Watson? Is our man movable?
He should be able to stand in a few minutes and will no longer be suffering from his cough before long.
Consider the affair resolved. Accompany him to his niece's while I return to the boarding house, and then join me at the police station. Let's return to the boarding house.
What's weird is the medicine that he gave him was in liquid form, meaning that it must be injected. Like, you wouldn't trust these people who don't know how to use needles with a needle. Plus, I didn't have any needles, so I'm guessing he's drinking it. Then again, I guess it could be like cough syrup, I guess. I guess it could be cough syrup, actually. Boarding house. Is it this one? Oh, here it is. Down Commercial Street. I don't think everyone's just got a bottle. Maybe I should be walking around with a fucking bottle.
I have good news for you, Mr. Finley. We have sent the captain to stay with a relative, and he shouldn't bother you for a while.
I also have some good news. I have your police bag.
Thank you. I bid you good day.
Oh, it was nothing. Tell me, one of my wife's friends lost...
Another day, Finley. Another day.
No, I'm not your personal detective, dude. Unless your wife's lost her fucking head, and it interests Holmes, then he will have nothing to do with it. I'm pretty sure, like, Sherlock Holmes only accepts cases that have a mystery to them. That's flowers. See, this is a respectable job. Selling flowers. Better than selling your ass, I guess, but... not many people will buy flowers, will they? I mean, nowadays, you'll open a florist. You'll notice that you don't see any flowers around this area. Like, none. Everything is just brick. This is kind of what you'd expect in 1888, wouldn't you? Is that?
Pardon me, but can you give me some information?
I beg your pardon, but I am expected.
Yeah, that's not the right voice. That's just... he looks like someone you speak to later on. It's weird. I'm sure they just recycled a lot of face models. I mean, I guess there's no reason not to, really. I mean, all these people, they just serve as padding, don't they? If they didn't exist, this would just be a very quiet, dead street, and it'd be actually kind of spooky. I kind of would like that, actually. That'd be nice.
Are you sure it's the police bag that you lost?
Yes, but someone attempted to force it open. They didn't succeed, but now the lock is stuck. Perhaps you could...
Let's see.
So this should be our first puzzle. There we go. Got to reset and go back. I'm pretty sure it's 2 here. Then... my god, my memory is super shitty. I think it's... that's the left. That should be 6. I think it's... oh, there we go. One more time, that'll be 1. It'll be 1 up here, 2 down here, and 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Yeah.
Well done.
A big thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Think nothing of it, my friend. So, the reports.
Why don't you wait till the inspectors get back? You would certainly learn more.
If I wanted to meet the inspectors, I would have done so. So, give me the preliminary reports, and above all, do not mention my visit to anyone. Is that clear?
Sure, if that's what you want. Here are the reports.
Thank you.
He just gives you the reports and doesn't worry about it. There we go. So, death of Polly Nichols, 31st of August, 1888. Report, autopsy was by Henry 𝘨𝘮𝘮𝘮? 𝘨𝘮𝘮𝘮? That's a very, very hard name for me to pronounce. It sounds Welsh, doesn't it? Well, it's written, I can't say it would be Welsh. I could be wrong, but who knows. Anyway, her throat had been cut from left to right. Huh. It was on top of her. His thumb was, he must have grabbed her with his with his left hand to pin her to the door. Then he stroked her head with his left hand, so he cut her throat with his right. I always assumed that he was lefty. Unless he's ambidextrous. He could be ambidextrous, I guess. Huh. The two distinct cuts being on the left side, the windpipe and gullet spinal cord being cut through. That's a fucking sharp blade. Like straight through the windpipe and gullet, and then all the way through to the spinal cord. That's brutally. I'm just thinking about how much force to cut through somebody's spinal cord. Bloody hell. A bruise apparently of a thumb being on the right lower cheek, or lower jaw, should I say. Also on the left cheek. So, hold on, it cropped. Yeah, okay then. The abdomen had been cut open. The center of the bottom of the rib, along the right side, under the pelvis to the left of the stomach. There, the wound was jagged. The omentum, or coating of the stomach, was also cut in several places, and 2 small stabs on private parts. Cool. Apparently done with a strong bladed knife, supposed to have been done by some left-handed person, death being almost instantaneous. Why would this guy assume it was left-handed? I'm a left-handed person. If I was pinning someone to the floor, again, if I was cutting, that's weird. Because I'm one of the very few people that actually is left-handed. He was using his right hand to gut her because he put his left hand on her face when she's on the floor, wasn't it? It's weird. That's confused me for a second now, that is. But basically, he cut her throat so deep that he severed the spinal cord. That's why in this newspaper it said, where did it say? It was like she was disemboweled and with her head nearly gashed from her body, yeah. God damn. That's a sharp knife, isn't it?
Have you obtained the preliminary reports?
Yes, we'll read them on the go. Let's to the scene of the crime at Bucks Row, Watson.
Guess we can, Oh, that's what it is. I thought someone was playing like a fruit machine. Yeah, so this this game has these types of things as well, where you will have to inspect the scene of the crime, and depending on how perceptive you are, you can get quite stuck because you can miss things that are super easy to miss. I'm supposed to go to Book Trail. I completely went past it, didn't I? Let's have a look. What's this here? Commercial Street. Batty Street. I thought Book Trail was down here. Burner Street. I'm going to have to actually look on my map. I don't even think... Oh, you can't just press M for map, can you? Lucy's Lodgings. Boarding house. Clinic. Oh, here we go. It's past the clinic. Yeah, I always get to this point where you can't leave, and I keep forgetting that you have to actually go into the alley to get to the clinic. That's always confused me. Yeah, here we go. So as you can see, look, now we've discovered things. They've pooped out fast travel points on the map. So if we click on it, it takes us straight to it. There's the clinic. Let's have a look at the scene of the crime, shall we? A lot of people are just standing there.
What are all these people doing here, Holmes?
They've got nothing to do.
Came to see the scene of the crime.
What about us?
Those you
Are we going
bastards.
to see it?
We will return this evening, Watson. The circumstances shall be ideal for carrying out our little experiments. Well, Watson, we are at the scene of the Polly Nichols murder. Imagine the victim lying at the spot where she was found and try to discern all of the clues we can. Watson, you are a writer. I am therefore entrusting you with our deduction board. It will help us to establish certain facts.
Understood, Holmes.
Like, somebody was just literally gutted here, and these people are still making out and, like, making sweet, sweet, sexy love. Not, like, completely oblivious to the fact that somebody was murdered. That's some commitment right there to your job. So yeah, these are the types of things. So this is what happened to her then. She was gashed in the throat, and then he separated her, well, he gutted her from the, I guess, from the lower pelvis all the way up to her, just below her chest. And yeah, so I think if we press space, yeah, it gives you, it highlights certain things. If you're kind of stuck about what to do, just give you some little hints, which is cool. Anyway, we'll inspect this now, and okay, before I was inspecting, I was saving the game, but as you can see, I can't save. This is the bug I was telling you about. Well, you can't save your game. So the last save was I always record at night anyway, because it's quiet around here at this time. That was about 20 minutes ago. So yeah. Okay, so after that annoying bug, let's continue, shall we? I kind of want to record the, like, this game's split up into days. I wanted to record each day of the video, but it's going to take too long, so I'm going to have to split this up. It's just kind of annoying. So every time you click on one of these...
This spot is deserted, Holmes. The prostitutes only come here to exercise.
Sexercise, more like. Ew. We'll talk about the deduction board in a minute. So every time you research something or look at something correctly, it turns green.
This spot is deserted, Holmes. The prostitute.
There's only one streetlight lit on this street, Watson.
Oh, here we go.
This spot is particularly poorly lit.
I thought you needed to get right close to it. Looks like you didn't. Yeah, so each time, each one of these introduces more, what are they called? More of these little information into your deduction board. Okay, so if we press space, it does light. It does indicate light your way.
No marks on the ground. The ground is muddy. No signs of blood. There is a black bonnet near the left hand. The body was lying on its back, legs straight and slightly apart. The skirt had been lifted up to the middle of the body. The left hand was touching the barn door. The body was still warm. Let's reread the preliminary report for the details on the wounds inflicted upon this poor woman. Let's look at this poor woman more closely.
So this is where you don't really get any help. So you click on the magnifying glass, and you just have to, like, randomly click at stuff. If you just keep clicking, Holmes will tell you what's right. This is one of them. This pool of blood.
Pool of blood, 6 inches in diameter.
The wounds on the neck.
The throat was slit from left to right. There are 2 incisions.
I don't know why there's 2. There's also the bruise on the cheek.
There's a bruise on the left cheek.
And then one down here.
There is a bruise at the level of the right maxilla.
And then the tongue.
The tongue is swollen. Well, Watson, we have found all of the possible clues, I think. We will now attempt to recreate the scene of the murder. Come closer, Watson. I have to make you up.
You are joking, Holmes.
This is the funny thing is, like, they do this for those people behind them.
I feel ridiculous, Holmes.
You look ridiculous. Like...
Now, Watson, come and stand here in front of me. You shall play the role of the poor woman, and I shall play that of the murderer.
Holy shit.
Try to reconstruct the facts to ensure the final result corresponds indisputably to the way that Polly Nichols was killed.
I like to think that the people to the right of us are watching this thinking, that's a weird kink. So you have to reenact both scenes. The first scene will be her standing up when she gets strangled. Then you have to pick how she was strangled, so with his hands. Then you have to pick which hand he strangled her with. It's either the right or left, so I don't really know that. And then you can pick your direction that Jack's position would be in. We already know he was facing her because we saw the flashback, or the murder. If you click play, Holmes will tell you if it's right.
Yes, it's quite possible the events occurred like this.
Here you go. And then you click on stop. Then click on the one where she's lying down. We know that she was killed with a knife. And then you have to choose position-wise. We know that he was on top of her because he cut her throat from the from what we saw. Now you have to choose whether it's left or right-handed. It can't be right-handed because his arm gets stuck on the barn.
I hope that, as with the real murder, nobody had to witness all of that, Watson.
So it has
If
to
the
be...
murderer used his right hand astride his victim, there wasn't much room.
So not enough room. So it has to be with the left hand.
The murderer had enough room to inflict the wounds to the neck, and these wounds suggest the left hand was used.
It's easy. Where'd you get the knife from?
Now that we have found all of our clues, nothing remains but to subject them to our most likely hypotheses in order to deduce the facts.
Now this is where the game starts getting into the mystery. The deduction board can be quite frustrating. In the later murders, the deduction boards are a lot bigger. Like, this only has 2 pages. As the game goes on and the murders start getting more elaborate and confusing, it goes to like 4, maybe 5 pages long. Each one of these is obviously branched off to one of these drop down, so then you have to pick between 3 answers, sort of deducing from the facts that you know, and maybe a bit of speculation. Some of this one's quite easy because we already know how the murder took place, seeing as we've just watched Holmes and Watson reenact it. So we have all the information. In the later ones, you don't have all the information, so you have to sort of like wing it. It can get very frustrating, especially when you've got like it'll be like a drop down here, and then it splits into 2 drop downs, and then that splits into 3 drop downs, and if one of these drop downs is wrong, then none of it works, and it's just like, for fuck's sake. It can lead to very anger-inducing moments. But like I said, it's a Sherlock Holmes game. It's all about your how perceptive you are in understanding all the information that's given to you. If you've ever played what's it called? Consultant Detective, the board game. That's kind of like this is, but Consultant Detective is this on steroids. It's sort of the same thing where you got to read between the lines. It's a lot of bloody reading. It's a lot of information to keep in your brain box. My brain box is full of all the 80s rock bands lyrics for every rock band in the 80s. So yeah, there's not much room in there anymore. So we'll just click on that. So you get 3 pieces of information. Bonnet was in her hand. Streets are lit poorly. Prostitutes only go down the street to exercise. So then you have to pick what all this is. We know that she wasn't cold. The bonnet couldn't have already been on the ground because it was in her hand. So the only one we got is the victim was holding her bonnet in her hand at the time of the murder. Then that poops out another one of these, which then would mean that she wasn't asking for alms, which is basically asking for money. She didn't collect the bonnet off the ground, we know that. She definitely wasn't afraid because he was a paying customer. She wasn't cautious, obviously. But in left hand, she was ready to exercise. I don't know what they keep saying, exercise. Just make relations or have sex. It's not like the word sex. It's fucking taboo in these situations. Not when you've seen someone get murdered, for fuck's sake. She wasn't cautious. Oh, wait a minute. There's something wrong there. She had a bonnet in her hand, ready to exercise. I don't know. Kind of weird, because those two could, they could be both, couldn't they? She could be, because obviously she's not cautious. But anyway, it goes green when you get it right. Let's have a look. Blood traces on the wall. There's no traces of blood on the wall. The victim had her throat slit. The wall was washed. We know that's not true. She didn't have a throat slit when she was standing. She had a throat slit when she was on the floor, so quietly. The victim didn't have her throat slit while standing. Okay. Little pool of blood. The blood didn't split. Well, she was dead, wasn't she? There's no... There would all be no gushing of blood if your heart stops pumping. Dirty and damp ground. He could not have relations on the ground. Nichols was dead before being stretched out and having a throat slit. There you go. So I mean, all these three then equals 1. What's annoying is if one of these is wrong, this will still poop out one of these, and then you'll have to figure out what you've got wrong. This you just drag these in here. Doesn't it automatically shunts them out. Corpse was still warm. No footsteps. Murderer cut open her throat. The victim wasn't dragged. We know that. Murder took place on the premises. The tongue is bloated, meaning that she was strangled. Victim had a bruise on her lower jawbone. This is the one I always get confused on. I always get confused on which hand. So I'm trying to think. He suffocated her apparently with his left hand. It's rather left. So let's have a look. There we go. Bruise was caused by hard pressure with the fingers. He didn't gag her because he was strangling her, wasn't he? So it must have been hard pressure. His left hand prevented her from screaming. What was it? Or did he use his right? See, this is right. I'm confused. Strangled her with a because he smothered her mouth with his left hand, then strangled her with the right hand. And we also don't know if it's left or right-handed. Okay, I got that right. Okay, I always get these two confused. In fact, I get these three confused. And this one should be... we know it's not a woman. He's not a big man. I think by big man, they mean tall. He's definitely not tall, but he's definitely strong. He's strong enough to sever her spinal cord. There we go.
The victim was most probably dead before being laid down. Once the heart stopped, gravity drained the body slowly, not in a heavy spurt that would have stained half the street.
Thank you, Holmes. I understand why you told me not to change clothes. Do you realize that our behavior didn't alarm anyone?
The victim's ordeal...
They're busy exercising.
By acting in silence, we have confirmed something. The crime definitely took place here. The victim and her murderer were able to come here without making any noise, and afterwards the murder took place without the slightest cry being uttered. Come, Watson, let's go home. We have spent far too long in this sinister alley. And so, my dear Watson, the day and night which we passed in Whitechapel were enlightening, weren't they?
An adventure that I most certainly will never relate. To be in the skin of that poor woman. I prefer not to speak of it further. But have we really learned anything about the murderer? Obviously a man, given the necessary strength.
We have little to go on, at least no more than the police. But in my opinion, Inspector Aberline has a trick or two up his sleeve. No, I want to talk about the facts and what we can draw from them. We know where the crime was committed and under what conditions. I would like to ask you about the possible motives for the crime. According to you, Watson, what could have pushed the murderer to act in such a way?
This doesn't really matter too much. You can't really get these wrong. If you put it in a wrong thing, it doesn't say anything. But if you put it in the right thing...
Perhaps.
I have a hard time believing that someone would attack poor Polly so fiercely just to rob her of a few coins.
Resentment can lead to an irreparable act of revenge.
Revenge?
Good old revenge.
Revenge could be a possible motive, but with one small reservation. We have reason to believe that the victim considered her murderer to be a typical client.
So we can click on this little icon to He thinks it could be revenge, but you never know. Victim suffered horrible mutilation, so badness.
Homicidal insanity, Holmes.
It is indubitable that the man who did this to Polly Nichols is not of his full senses.
So that's a yes. Incredibility, credible motive, even though it's it's not the field that Sherlock. It's a field that Sherlock doesn't know, so it's definitely black magic.
Black magic?
I'm not terribly interested in the occult.
I don't think anyone is, mate.
Let's give the benefit of the doubt to this motive.
So that's a yes. Victim was an occasional prostitute without family or ties.
Elementary.
There you go.
Well, Watson.
Easy.
I think that we've exhausted the topic. Take a rest and we'll speak again later.
Ah, it would seem that the investigation is advancing, Holmes. Yesterday's Star said that a suspect is in the hands of the police, a man with a rather sinister reputation.
I was about to join you in your optimistic outlook until you informed me that the good news came from the press, Watson.
But surely they wouldn't invent the fact that the police are holding a suspect, or the acts that are attributed to him.
You will have an exact answer to these two questions in less than 50 seconds, Watson.
Pardon?
Enter, Inspector.
It's funny how Holmes hates the newspapers. You don't trust them, do you? Really? It's basically just
Dear
headline
Watson,
news.
allow me to introduce Inspector Aberline, Inspector Dr. Watson.
Inspector?
To what do we owe the honour of your presence, Inspector?
I heard that the two of you made your way to Whitechapel a few days ago. Your arrival, you are aware, coincides with a very serious affair which our police service is going to great lengths to solve and which is creating strong tensions in the area.
Pardon me, but haven't you arrested someone? A certain leather apron?
Absolutely not. The man who hides behind this name is indeed being actively searched for by the force. Besides, nothing at the moment suggests that he is the Bucks Row murderer.
There, you've been enlightened, Watson. Now it is our turn to answer Inspector Aberline's questions.
Indeed. I will be brief and precise. Do you intend to investigate this case, or have you already started?
It is to be of service to a friend that I went to Whitechapel. We did, out of curiosity, familiarise ourselves with the preliminary reports, and we made our way to the scene of the crime. Our conclusions are slim, as are the clues. Having not been officially appointed by a client, I believe that my intervention in this business will end there.
Very well. To be frank, you take the weight off my shoulders by distancing yourself from the case. Our image isn't very good, to say nothing of what the press puts us through. Thus, if overnight they found out that you were on the case, people would turn against us.
And they would pester me, overwhelm me, and finally make me out to be responsible for the inevitable failure such a scenario entails. Neither you nor I wish for this to happen. I know that your time is precious, Inspector. I will send you a note regarding my conclusions shortly.
With pleasure. Gentlemen?
Do you think that he will find the murderer?
The chances are slim to non-existent. It is 7 days now, short of a confession from the murderer himself.
And you will not go further?
You heard the Inspector, Watson. My presence in Whitechapel would hinder, which doesn't mean that we will drop the case.
How is that?
The Inspector spoke of me, but not of us. It is you, Watson, who will lead the investigation tonight. It is you who will bring to the police station the little note that I will write regarding our conclusions. Despite the late hour, there is nothing to stop you from making inquiries about this famous leather apron while you are there.
Some loophole right there, isn't it? He's not wrong. And the only thing we need to worry about this is... let's have a look. It says something to do with this guy's... One of the reporters visited one of the single women lodging house. In the house, there are 66 women who get their bed for 4D. Yeah, he knocks them about, so basically he beats the prostitutes. That's the only thing we really need to know. You can read all these, but it's newspapers. It's just bollocks, isn't it?